I'm moving my family to Georgia. He goes, I don't know why, but I think you're the guy that needs to take half of my collection. So I went from that 35 comfortable snakes to like 150 in less than a 3-month time period.
Howdy folks, Brian Cusco here, and today we're going to sit down with Jim Ward of Next Level Displays. And we're going to hear a bit about Jim's story of how he got to where he's at with Next Level Displays, and you're watching the Redline Report. How did you get into the whole reptile world? Have you been, like, how did that happen?
You want the whole stereotypical story like we all have of,
Oh, well, only if it's yours.
So it's same as most people you'll find in the hobby. I started out as a kid putting frogs and snakes in my pockets and bringing them home for my mom to do laundry with them. Find them in the wash and in the windowsills and everywhere.
How was her reaction to that?
Pretty tolerant, considering, I guess. She never discouraged me. I'd get a scolding when she'd find them in the wash. She's like, I hate that, But for the most part, that was when I was younger. As time went on, they went into some kind of a box or makeshift enclosure to keep them for a little while, and then I'd go release them and catch some more. Every summer was catching snakes, catching frogs. That's what we did.
Cool.
And then that developed into keeping reptiles when I was out on my own. And
what species did you keep?
First species I wanted was a berm, because I went to a friend's brother's house. He was already moved out, and he had this probably about an 8-foot berm. We went over there to visit, and he pulled that thing out and let me hold it. And I was done. It was over. So, but I ended up with a boa. So first species was a boa I had for quite a few years, and then I switched to a berm over some time. And then moving and things changing, ended up getting rid of that berm too. And then had no reptiles for a few years. And then just decided I couldn't be without them, wanted them again. So I got another boa and a carpet python. And then I met my wife, and she started getting into the hobby. She got a couple ball pythons to start a breeding pair, and doing research on the different stuff that that people are producing, especially in the boas. I was like, I've got to try that. So 1 went to 2, went to 4, went to 8. I think we got up to about 35 animals. I was pretty comfortable with that. But then a friend of mine wanted a boa that I had. He's like, I'm going to buy that boa, but only condition is you have to take all my ball pythons, because I want autumn. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll sell them or something, because I was just going to be boa only. But then we had all these ball pythons, so we started, might as well breed them, we have them. So we started breeding those, and we did egg cutting videos on Facebook and stuff, and it became a fun little side deal too. So we were doing that, breeding the boas, breeding the small collection of ball pythons. Another friend of mine had to move and got into some issues and said, hey, come and get everything. Snakes, cages, everything. So that was another like 20-some ball pythons, another handful of carpet pythons, some colubrids. That jumped me up, I would say, probably into the 80s. And Father's Day 2014, my wife bought me a sunglow boa. And I'd wanted one for a while. That's what I wanted to try to breed. So we went to Ohio from Michigan to go pick up this boa, and met the guy, and ended up buying, I think we bought 3, and he gave me 2 other ones to take back home. So that was my plan. I was going to take off on that adventure, and a couple weeks go by. The guy calls me up, and he says, hey, I'm moving my family to Georgia. He goes, I don't know why, but I think you're the guy that needs to take half of my collection. He goes, I said, I don't have money for half your collection. He goes, come down, we'll talk it over, and we'll go through it. So I go down to Ohio, and we sit down and just sit around his table and talk for a while. And he's like, take them, we'll figure out a payment plan that we're both comfortable with, and you just take half of them. I said, okay, I guess. If you trust me, I met this guy twice, right? I think part of it was he was involved with the church. We were involved with the church. I think that gave him a little bit of comfort too. So we took half his collection home, get this all set up. It wasn't maybe a week and a half. He calls me back. He goes, go come and give us the rest of them. So I went from that 35 comfortable snakes to like 150 in less than a 3-month time period. Talk about overwhelmed. Then we started breeding them. I think our peak, we got up to about 500, give or take babies. So I right now I kind of roll between 350 and 500. Then we started the business, and that's taken off. So things
The next level display business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now things are getting pretty busy. So I'm trying to figure out I think we're backpedaling on the ball pythons, and I'll keep going forward with the boas because that's where the passion always was to begin with. But yeah, so then that, going to expos, trying to peddle our babies and do our thing.
How did the display thing come about?
It was a need. So we were doing expos. Early on, we started with like deli cups and bought a couple used displays, and we always wanted to have heat on our animals so they stayed healthy. So I'm always laying out heat and carrying all these lights and clamping tails. I kept thinking there's got to be a better way to do this. This is 2 hours before a show, 2 hours after a show. I mean, give or take, it could be an hour depending on how much stuff you have, but there had to be a better way to do it. So I probably had the thought in my head for year and a half before I brought it to an actual prototype product. A friend of mine was an engineer. I went to him and I said, hey, let's figure this thing out. So I rolled out the prototype in October of 2018. Formed the LLC, applied for the patent, made some for ourselves, and started going to shows and displaying them. And that's when people started seeing them, and one thing led to another, and here we are.
So how many displays are you like having to produce a year at this point?
It varies. So at first we were doing it out of our basement. So my wife and I would stay up until midnight after work and putting displays together and shipping them across the country through her work. So I'd bring them into her work and put them on pallets and band them up and ship them on a truck. And then 2019, we were actually leaving on a church trip. And I come across a CNC machine because I was paying somebody else to do all my machining on them. I come across the CNC machine available. So I called the guy up on it. Like, I'm leaving on this trip. He's like, well, if you don't buy this thing, I'm sending it to auction, and it's not going to be available anymore. I said, well, what can I do to lock it in? Because I want this thing. He's like, write me some kind of promissory note, and we'll be good. So I wrote him up a promissory note, gave it to him so we're settled. I was going to take care of it when I got back. I had no place to put it. It wouldn't fit my basement. Happened to be that engineering friend of mine that helped me with doing the design work on the original unit, they had just rented a new place and they had extra room. He's like, come and check out this area. So I went and looked at it, and it fit our bill. So we got back from our church trip, and I had this stuff delivered and spent a couple months myself setting everything up. I couldn't afford to pay anybody else. So I was a machine builder for quite a few years, so I kind of knew what I was doing. So we set it up in his shop January, February, kind of got things rolling March, and then COVID hit. Thought, oh boy, we're done. But actually, the guy that used to do all my cutting called me up and said, hey, I heard you got a CNC. I thought he was going to be upset. I took the work away from him. He's like, you want any work? I'm like, sure. I cut over 40,000 COVID sneeze guards that summer. And that saved us. Right when that started to taper off, the display industry took off. Well, you know how the reptile industry did too.
Yes.
Everything took off there at the end of that COVID summer, especially with the free money the government was giving out and everybody had all this free time. So things really took off. We got so busy. I was at one point 10 months behind on orders.
Wow.
Waiting list. Well, no, that was paid orders. And I was getting to the point, like, I'm going to end up making a mistake and getting really backwards here. So I stopped taking regular orders and I started a waiting list until we got caught up on the orders, and then started going through the waiting list because I didn't like having that money. People got their money invested in something. That's an uneasy feeling too when you're waiting 10 months and your money's already out there.
Totally.
So I figured we'll switch it around. And we started a waiting list, and we finally got caught up on those back orders, and then we had a 10-month long waiting list. But as time changed, that kind of mellowed out, and we were able to put on more employees and get caught up. And now we usually have them in stock. I'm out right now because before the show I had a bunch of pre-orders, but we usually keep them in stock.
Wow.
And then buying the CNC opened me up to start the cage and rack business, and we started doing cages and racks, and yeah.
That's cool, man. It's and so it's like full time?
Yeah, so I went full time right before COVID. I quit my job, and then no, I quit my job in January. My wife quit her job right before COVID in March. That's why we thought we were done, but thankfully everything worked
So you guys
out,
both quit your jobs and then COVID.
and then COVID hit. Yeah, so
Wow. Some crazy timing.
yeah, but everything worked out. I mean, we've been blessed. We're not becoming millionaires doing this, but we get to travel across the country. We get to meet all these different people and see all these different sites and do it together. That's the best part of it.
About how many shows are you doing a year?
25 to 35 probably. I mean, we're doing 2 to 3 shows a month generally.
Okay.
You know, there's summertime I'll usually back off a little bit and we'll spend a little time taking the Jeep and going camping or something. Then we'll shut down in the fall 1 week. We come out here to Colorado and hit the mountains and kind of enjoy that for a little bit. But yeah, we're going. When you hit we just did a back-to-back-to-back type of thing we had 1 week before this show and 2 back-to-back shows right before that. And plus we had a big church thing that was in the middle of that, so that got kind of hectic trying to get the product flipped. And of course the last show before this one was a pretty good show, so we had a lot of product to restock, but that can get tough.
So I know you do so every show on Saturday you do the Sabbath, so you're not at the show. You have your stuff set up, but you're not there
Right.
at the table. How does that work? Like, as far as business and as far as like relationship with promoters and like how does that all work?
So before we ever come to a show where we approach a promoter on a 2-day show, that is. Sunday shows are no problem because we don't do any Saturday shows. But on a 2-day show, when we're inquiring about doing the show, we approach a promoter and explain our situation. Say, listen, this is our deal, and it's not negotiable. But if you let us in the show, we'll set up Thursday, Friday, whenever we can. Our stuff will be there on display. There's a sign explaining why we're not here. A lot of the shows I do, I've got a friend or there's other people that have been at shows with us long enough that will help explain, and they don't mind doing that. And most promoters have been okay with it, and we've never had any issues. Like, we haven't had stuff disappear. We get a lot of messages on Saturday, and we'll return those. Sundown Saturday, our Sabbath ends, so we'll return some of the messages on Saturday night and Sunday morning, the rest of them, and then address the people at the show. A lot of people have gotten used to it now. At first, it was like, "Why ain't you at the show today? I can't come back tomorrow." It's like, "I'm sorry, I can't help you." And then they show up at the show again Sunday to pick up the stuff a lot of times anyway. But most people have learned that we're not going to be around Saturday, at least our regular customers.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Is there a reason you do Saturday in particular? Like, and just doing like.
Well, the
Thursday?
original Sabbath was Saturday. We keep all the original Levitical laws too. So I don't know if you've read Leviticus, but there's a lot of feasts that go into that are in Leviticus that God commands that we keep. We still keep all of those, and we keep the Sabbath. So man actually changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday, and it says in the Bible that no man can change my word, blah, blah, blah. So we still keep everything just as it's written in the book. Some people think that a lot of those laws were done away with when Christ was sacrificed. We believe that sacrifices were done away with when he was sacrificed, but he said to keep his laws even to a stronger, and I can't remember the verse right now, but he emphasized even more so to keep the law. So that's what we believe, and that's why we don't do anything on Saturday. So we don't do any business. We don't talk business. Usually we don't try. It's hard even between her and I, my wife and I, or we're friends with business starts to come up. It's like, all right, we got to find a different conversation.
Right.
It's human nature, but
Totally.
yeah.
That's cool, man. I definitely respect that. That's pretty awesome that you guys have made that work, and that because it's important to have that rest time.
Yeah.
too, right. And
Yeah, and it's worked out pretty well. Some people think I'm crazy for not doing it on Saturday, especially when we're at like Tinley. It's like, dude, most of my money comes on Saturdays. Well, God will make it work for me.
It's cool, man. I like that, dude. I like that. Is there anything you want to talk about, like where people can follow what you guys are doing, or social media stuff, or just any?
Well, we're on your standard social media, Facebook. We have Instagram. We got a new website, so that just released, and that's next-level-displays.com. So make sure that dash is in there. You'll end up at, I think, a company that does displays for trade shows. My phone is always on. I take direct phone calls. I actually prefer them over messages because I can do that and work at the same time. Most of the time, Anna's talking to you. A lot of guys will be like, "Thanks, dude. Thanks, man." And it's like Anna just chuckles and replies as if she though it was me because I'm working and she's doing the reply work. But we got that new tower that you've seen out there on the table.
Yeah.
That's
Thing's
kind of
pretty slick.
That's been hot. I want to do some. I think I want to do some design tweaks to it before I do the next batch. So I've got this one here and 2 left back at the shop that I've got to just finish up. But then I think I'm gonna change the next one a little bit, roll out a little different version, like a version 2. Which everything we've done is, I always try to continually make the product as good as I can or a little bit better.
Take it to the next level.
Yeah, exactly. And we've done that with every product. So every product, I can go out there and show you. I've got some of my first style racks. I've got some of the newer style racks, and I've just continually, if I can think of a way to make it better, I try to implement it. As long as it's nothing that's raised the cost too much. So, like I got a lot of lizard people. I just did a podcast last week, and they're looking for UV lighting in the rack systems. It's like I can do that, but it's going to be costly.
Right.
And I mean, people balk at prices a lot as it is, and if you want to pay it, we'll talk. But just realize that that's going to be a big increase. So it's not going to be a standard product because it ain't going to be one that everybody comes up and is going to want. So, but we're always trying to improve and make it as good as possible. We listen to the other breeders. Like I don't do a whole lot of lizards or geckos. We have a couple, but don't have a ton of knowledge. So I go to the people that have the knowledge. How should I do this rack? What would you change? I've got a guy in Wisconsin that runs the Wisconsin Scaled Up Expos that we do. He's a leopard gecko breeder. I'm like, all right, let's get together and figure out some racks. So now he's got some of my racks, and he gives me what I would change this. I would do this. Here's an idea for you. So that's the best way for anybody to design anything is off of people that use it or know how to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's cool, man. Well, I'm glad that you've had such success, man. It's good.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
It's neat to watch where we started in the basement to now. I don't think I've been to an expo where one of our products ain't there, or at least a customer that has one of our products. So that's neat to see. It's kind of humbling, but neat to see.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's awesome. Anything you wanna put out there before we wrap up?
I don't think so. Just be kind. We'll stick with that.
All right.
Just like Brian said.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Love you.
Love you too, man. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Go check Jim out on all his social media spots and leave a comment down below and let us know any thoughts you have about what we talked about here today. And thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week right back here on Redline Report. Y'all take care. Howdy, folks. Brian Cusco here. Not Triple B. God, I am at Triple B, but we're doing Redline Report. Oh, man. There have been times when I did not hit record, and I was like, oops. Let me see here. Do you want to do headphones or no?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I'm doing it with headphones usually, because it's usually super loud and there's people everywhere. Right now, it's pretty quiet. Yeah, we appreciate you guys tuning in for the Redline Report, and we'll. Oh my gosh.
What do you want to do then? This is your show.
It's my show.
I'm just here.
I'm gonna take them off
Okay.
because there's not 100 people shouting around us. And it's actually your show, Jim. I'm just here to facilitate.
Is that
Yeah.